Okay, so now we've saved our motion document and we're ready to get going. Um, at the moment, you've been asked to create a 30-second clip, and we can, when we set up this file, it was 300 frames, and we need to make sure that we set it to 30 seconds. So if we go down to File, no, we want Edit Project Properties, that sounds better. Edit Project Properties, and you can see we've got frame rate of 29.97 or 30 frames per second. That's the one that we set. And duration, we've got frames, so we've got a couple options. We can change it to seconds. 300 seconds is not enough. If we just keep it at frames, and we know we've got 30 frames a second, and we want 30 seconds, which is 900 frames. Okay, so it's probably at this stage best to stick with frames. You may want to change to seconds if you want, but just make sure it's for 30 seconds, not 900 seconds. So 900 frames, so we can go OK. So you can see down in the bottom right hand corner we've now got 900 frames. Top right hand corner there's a little icon called timing, so the timing pane. So if we click that, we now have a panel along, or the timeline along the bottom, and some other features which will be useful once you start bringing in different bits and pieces. We also at the moment the Windows 100%, you might want to just change that to fit in Windows so you can always see your movie. So we have a little file browser on the side so we can look at all the files. So we've got one here. Obviously it doesn't play because it's just a Photoshop document. We can import it straight from there, but it's not going to give us the ability to bring in each layer. So we need to come up to File, Import, and in this case it's gone to where I've saved the file, which is handy. So I've got my multimedia resized, so I can click on that and I can import, and it gives us a little option. So layer name, and then we've got merged layers. I want all layers, so now it'll bring in all the layers. And you can see down the bottom it's created all these layers in the timeline, which we will be able to use later on. But at the moment it's brought it all in 2D, and that's not really what we want. So what we're going to do is I'm going to delete that, delete, and before we get started I'll just delete that group as well. What happens if I delete that? Good, it's all gone. So I want to sort of set up so that we're seeing 3D. New camera. So I've added a new camera, so I've clicked a new camera, and it has ability to move around. And on the right hand side we can see, on the left hand side, sorry, we can see active camera, and then we can change. So to start with, I'm just going to go to perspective. So this is going to be like a work zone, but you can see the camera and what that camera is looking at, which is going to be really useful. To move around the space, we've got some little panels over here in the top right hand corner, so I can click and move around as we want. So now I want to bring in my Photoshop document. So File, Import, Resized, and that I know was going to fit within the size of the view. So I'm going to hit Import and then check all layers and go OK. And now you can see, I have to move over, you can now see we've sort of got our document, our Photoshop document in 3D space. So if I can start moving around that. Now I want to start playing with the layers. So if I just click in here and we check under Inspector, type 3D under Inspector. So I've selected the Photoshop document, and then up under Inspector it gives you a whole lot of information. So I want to say that it's 3D, just gives us a bit more ability to work with. And then down in the timeline I now can start selecting different layers. So I'm going to start selecting each layer, and then in this little palette, the HUD, I can turn that on and off if it's not there, means I can now start moving some of these things around. So I want to move the piece, so I'm moving that one, and I'm moving it out on that sort of blue axis. So I'm now starting to pull that Photoshop document apart. So you can see I'm just slowly moving through. These all have similar pieces, but you'll begin to get an idea. So this one I can move out, start pulling it out. I can also, with that piece selected, I can then move. You can see the little icon. So if we move in, you can see I can move around. So I'm going to also move some up and to the left. I can click on the corners and pull in and scale. If I hold down shift, it will keep it uniform. And when I'm doing these moves, so that goes to the whole document. So you need to make sure you're selecting a layer. So I've come down into the thing to select that layer, so I can move. So this is sort of setting up how we want it to move. And if we want to start affecting this over time, so to start to animate it, so in this case I want to select this, but I want to start at that position, but at say 200 frames, 240. So a few seconds in, I want to move it. So I need to start at 0 because that's where I know I want that object to be. Then I push record, a little button there, and then move to where I want it. And then if I move this over, you can see it creates a red line. It's sort of dragging, showing where it's moving. So now if I stop recording and then come back here, put the timeline back, and I'll just scrub through, you can see that that piece is moving. So I'm now starting to animate. So by using that record, I can go through and animate any sort of component that I want. I can also, so if I come back to the start with the head, push record, I also want to scale that down. So if I hit that, move it up. So now it's going to start small and get bigger, hopefully. Let's see what happens. So because I did it at the start and haven't brought it back up, it's staying one size, okay? So what I need to do is push pause and make sure I've got record on, so it sort of sets the start of the animation and go to where I want it to end, and then now scale it back up, and I want to keep it uniform. So now if we stop recording, come back to the start and push play, you can see that it scales and moves along because of the way I've set it up.